Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for August of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Well, Sag, your month's themes have a special emphasis on work and career. If you need answers, anything Julia and I say here can be more fully explained in a mission orders reading. You'll find a link for that in the text that comes with this video. Well, I want to start with something ongoing and continuing from last month, which is Juno traveling along through Pisces. Because Juno has turned retrograde, there's the little red RX symbol already in place when this month begins. So Juno, when it goes retrograde, brings us into a relationship retrospection period where we find ourselves looking at the past and looking at the depths of our long-term relationships of all kinds, personal and professional. This particular one has a Pisces flavor to it, which is to say it's like we're applying a spiritual litmus test. We're asking ourselves, how well does this relationship mesh with my spiritual value system? And for you, Sagittarius, this is coming down in the fourth house of home and family, domestic life, heritage, and roots. So you're asking yourself this question about your long-term connections with family members or people that you live with. If you want to find out more about this Juno in Pisces, I strongly recommend that you check out our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, and find the July 2022 news playlist where you can hear all about what this Juno in Pisces means, how long it lasts, and how to handle it. The other thing I want to allude to right now is that Uranus is traveling along through Taurus and will be there, will be going direct only until, I believe it's the 23rd or 24th. And boom, right there, Uranus goes retrograde. And when Uranus pivots, we find ourselves at a crossroads and where perhaps something new and different is in the offing. Perhaps an idea has come in from left field, and really there is some change or innovation that we should make. And we find ourselves face to face with that necessity, and where it's time to begin to look more deeply into it. And that process begins right around when Uranus turns retrograde. So that's happening on the 24th. And for you, this really lands in your sixth house of work and systems, the systems that make life run personally and professionally. And so if this is a year in which you are innovating your systems, then this particular pivotal day might be really noticeable, and it might be time to begin to do the research and the introspection needed to change your systems over to something a little bit more current. Hey, Julia, what's the news for Mercury, Venus, and Mars for the Sages of the world?
Well, lots of stuff coming your way, Sagittarius. I'll begin with Mercury, the planet that represents your mind. Wherever we have Mercury, we tend to have a lot more communication and socializing that month, as well as where our mind could be very preoccupied, where we could be thinking, strategizing, and planning. So for the first few days of the month, Mercury begins in your ninth house. This house rules travel, exploration, learning, education, all that good stuff. And this transit mainly happened last month. So if you do want a more in-depth analysis of what this is like, I totally recommend you check out our last month's video. But Mercury in the ninth is generally a time where your mind might be preoccupied with faraway places. Maybe you're planning your next trip. Maybe you've already been on a trip. And it can be a wonderful time for learning something new that really makes you feel like you've grown a lot or personally expanded. Then by August 3rd or 4th, depending on where you are in the world, what time zone you're in, Mercury enters your 10th house. Now, this is a house that represents your public reputation. It's a very, very public house. It also represents your career and authority figures. So with Mercury in the 10th, this is a great time if you do any public speaking, if you're in the public eye at all, or if you do any self-promotion on social media. It's a wonderful time for getting your words out into the public. Mercury in the 10th you might have more increased communication with the authority figures in your life. Maybe you're talking to your boss more, your parents, teachers could be ruled by this house. And Mercury in the 10th house might mean that you are really thinking and planning and strategizing about your career too. Then Venus, the planet of art, beauty, and relationships, starts the month in your 8th house. This is a financial house. It's a house that rules shared money. It's also a house that rules research. It's also a house that rules social taboos, the more dark side of life, the stuff that you don't just bring up in some surface conversation you're having with someone you just met at a party because it's a little too dark and intense. So Venus in this house tends to find more pleasure, more harmony, more luck in all 8th house things. So that could also mean that you're drawn to more social taboos this month. Maybe you're being experimental with your partner, or maybe you're really, really into a murder mystery, something that other people in your household might not be able to handle because it's a little too intense. Venus in the 8th can mean that you get a little money luck through other people's money. So that could mean that maybe somebody close to you, maybe your family is kind of writing you into an inheritance, maybe your partner is getting a raise, or maybe you're applying for a loan and it comes through too. Then on August 11th, Venus enters your 9th house. Again, I mentioned the 9th house earlier because Mercury starts the month here. This is the travel house. This is a house of education. And it can also rule religious places too. So if you go to a church, a temple, an ashram, that's all 9th house stuff. So with Venus in the 9th house, if you're in a relationship, you could be enjoying doing something expansive with your partner. Maybe this is a good time to go on a little trip with them. Or if you're single and you're traveling now, you might find yourself a holiday romance too. Venus in the 9th house can also mean that you find more pleasure, especially with going to whatever sort of religious place that whichever religion you follow. If there's a place of worship, you may be finding more pleasure, a little bit more harmony, a little bit more enjoyment there too. And then Mars, the planet of action and activity. Wherever we have Mars, we can be very driven, but it is also a little bit of a feisty planet, so it can also show us where we run into conflict too. And Mars starts the month in your 6th house. This house rules your health, so sometimes this transit can kind of kick up some chronic conditions like migraines or PMS or anemia. This house also rules your workplace. So this could be a time where you're really driven at work, where you can get a lot of stuff done, but it can also be a time where egos might be running a little high in your workplace too, with clients or customers or even coworkers as well. Now, Mars in the 6th can be a wonderful transit because the 6th house rules, it's a health house, it rules routines to do something physical for your health. So if you need to start a new workout routine, or if you want to up the level of your workout routine that you're already doing, training for a half marathon or something of that nature, Mars in the 6th is definitely a great time for that. Now, after August 20th, Mars goes into your 7th house. This is a relationship house. This rules your romantic partner. So with Mars in the 7th house, you guys might not be seeing eye to eye on everything. The 7th house is really about those one-to-one relationships, and Mars can bring a little bit of conflict, can kind of even bring annoyance, can even bring irritation to these levels. But if you and your partner sort of get involved in a shared effort in something, like if it's just going on a jog together, if it's doing a housing project together, but something where you guys are just kind of like really physical, that could actually be a very constructive use of the transit too.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back to August 11, which is when the first of this month's 2 moons is happening. And this is a full moon in Aquarius falling in your 3rd house, which is a house of communication, words, ideas, language. And Saturn's traveling through this house over a 2.5 year period. We can't really know when it began for you personally and when it finishes without looking at your personal chart with your actual birth time. But suffice it to say that as long as Saturn is in your third house, you may feel like you must be cautious with your words. And you may be trying to craft your communication in ways that are structured. It's a really good time to be working on a writing project. And this moon really plugs into some of those Saturnine meanings because of the way that the moon and Saturn conjunct right here. So if you have been working on a writing project, you could really be in the mood to work on that during this moon, which might be great news. But I have to warn you that Uranus over here in the 6th house, remember, is bringing innovation and the new and different to your systems. And so you may feel like there's some disruption happening in your systems, which makes it hard to concentrate on your thoughts, your words, and your ideas. So this particular moon poses those kinds of dilemmas. Now, the next thing that happens is that the sun, which began the month in Leo in your 9th house, travels along until it finishes out this sign and moves into the 10th house, which is the domain of career and authority. And wherever the sun goes, we want to shine the sunlight of our high quality attention. And when we do, things in this domain can thrive. This being the domain of career and authority, it's time to take your place among the stars, if you will. It's a time to show up at work as a leader, as a charismatic person, as somebody who knows what they want and where they're going. It's a time to really bring your most shiny self to work. Also put some high quality attention on the higher ups, those above you. You could really recommend yourself to them and get yourself noticed by those who have influence over your progress. And this month, whenever the sun is passing through Virgo and occupying your 10th house, is a really great time to do that. A couple days later, the moon joins the sun here in your 10th house, bringing a new moon in Virgo, and that happens on August 27th. And this particular new moon we're calling perfectionism with scattered actions. It's perfectionistic in its quality because they are in Virgo, and there is a really strong desire to get it exactly right whenever the moon falls in Virgo. And in the 10th house in particular, you may feel like you've got to plant some pretty perfect seeds in the domain of your career. New moons are a great time for new beginnings, and you're going to want to make the beginning as pristine as possible. However, there is a disruptor in this story, I'm afraid, and that would be Mars, which Julia spoke of, Mars moving into the 7th house and perhaps bringing conflict in relationships, in partnerships, in one-on-one dialogues. And so beware of arguments that would, sort of undermine or disrupt that shiny quality that you're trying to project in your career, and also that might interfere with any new seeds that you might want to plant. And in particular, when Mars is in a stressful connection with something like this, it's important to not be hasty, impulsive, or go off half-cocked, and especially in the form of an argument with somebody who maybe, you kind of needed to continue your climb up the ladder of success. All right, well, that's what we have for you, Sag. You can always find your horoscope, including the horoscope for your other sign, on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the horoscope tab. And if you want to know more about this month's moons and what they mean and how to handle them, you can find videos about them in our forecast tab. And if you want a reading with Julia or me, you can find that in the readings tab. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.